I want to share a story about something that I experienced this past week. You see, I was in the hot seat in my Green Room Mastermind group. For those of you who are new, I've been a part of a mastermind group that's met on a weekly basis since October 2010. And this group was started by myself and my dear friend, Pat Flynn. And other members in this group are my friends Mike Stelzner, Ray Edwards, Mark Mason, and Leslie Samuel. So there are 6 of us that have been meeting every single week for many years. Some of my biggest breakthroughs and aha moments come from being in a hot seat. Sometimes they come from witnessing and observing other people's breakthroughs in their hot seats. No matter what, I always walk away with some sort of clarity about things I want to do next, and also clarity about action items that I want to take next. Let me give you a little background of what was going on before I went into this particular hot seat. Back in December of last year, I brought back my podcast Answer Man brand. At the same time, I thought that it made logical sense that the world would want my podcasting A to Z online group study program. It's a 4-week group coaching program as a cohort where I would personally be your coach in a small group setting with up to 20 other people for 4 weeks as we all go through this together. And so as I did all of the administrative things to bring this brand back online, reconnecting with some relationships I have within the industry, getting myself booked to speak at Podfest Expo last year, bringing back the Podcast Answer Man podcast and committing to it on a weekly basis, bringing this show back to a weekly ongoing commitment as well, in addition to a lot of other guesting on other people's podcasts and so many other things, booking myself to speak at other events. I'm getting ready to speak at Social Media Marketing World here in a couple of weeks in Anaheim, California. These have been the kinds of things that I've focused on. Now, when I brought back the brand, I had promoted the Podcasting A to Z online group coaching program quite a bit, just dropping calls to action here and there. I saw the hits on the sales page, but nothing necessarily converting into a sale. That's no problem. I mean, it's been dormant for several years, 8.5 years. And so I figure, it's going to take a little time before I build up a reputation for people who are, among those who are looking to launch a podcast. When I went to Podfest Expo, and I've told this before in prior episodes, and so if you've heard this before, just bear with me. I promise you this is going to be the shortest part of the story. There's new details coming soon, but I want to share this for those who are just tuning in for the first time or relatively new. You see, I went to Podfest Expo, and roaming the halls there, I met hundreds of people who I'd known from years past, and some of them who had known me from years past as the Podcast Answer Man, where I was meeting them for the very first time. And then I met a very large number of people who I met for the very first time, and it was their first time ever hearing about me. And one thing almost every single one of those individuals had in common was they already had a podcast. Or those who were just on the verge of launching a podcast weren't really feeling any specific need to hire a coach or to take a 4-week group coaching program. The technical aspects of podcasting today are far easier than they have ever been before. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot to be said for the strategy side, determining your messaging, setting clear guidelines for what success looks like. What does it mean to create content that resonates with people? There's a lot to be said for what I could offer, but it was a situation where I felt like, wow, I'd really need to educate why it would be worthy of going through my 4-week group coaching program instead of trying to go this alone. And I'm certainly up for that. I've done it in the past, and I was prepared to do it again. However, while I was meeting those people, not only did I notice that they weren't looking for a coaching program to help them launch a podcast, what I did observe was how many people are out there as an aspiring or early stage business owner who is looking to use their podcast to move the needle forward on their business pursuits, their desire to find consistent revenue. And as I was having conversations with many of these individuals, I recognized that most all of them lacked any business model that would seem to indicate that they've validated that people are even interested in paying what they had to offer. Also, there were several who simply demonstrated exactly what I struggled with most in the early days of my business, which was limited beliefs about mindset around money, advertising, sales, marketing yourself, putting your voice out there. It became clear. It's like, oh, wait, okay, I remember this is exactly why I shut down the Podcast Answer Man brand, because so many people were coming to me for the technical stuff when I recognized they need the business strategy and mindset side. And that's why I shut all of that stuff down years ago. These people could benefit from the one thing that has been among the most powerful things that I've experienced in my own personal and professional growth, and that would be experience in a powerful mastermind group program. Now, the Green Room Mastermind is set in stone. We have been for more than 12 years. So we don't bring in new members. But back in, let's see here, it was November 2017, I launched 2 groups of the Next Level Mastermind. One was for people like myself at that point, established entrepreneurs. We have validated products and services. We have a proven business model. Clients are consistently working with us. They're renewing. Things are going very smoothly, and yet there's a lot to be said about surrounding yourself with other people who do life at your level, who are faced with the kind of decisions that you face, that have experiences doing a lot of the same things you're looking to do. And you can share notes with one another. And so what I recognize is like, wow, I love one-on-one coaching with these individuals, but I also do life with a lot of other people where, boy, if I put these people in a group together and on a weekly basis, we meet and expose each other to this level of support, not just one-on-one with me, but this group together on an ongoing basis, that it would transform their lives, much in the way my life has been powerfully transformed just by being in the Green Room Mastermind. So as I came back from PodFest Expo, after several weeks after having relaunched the Podcast Answer Man brand, it became very clear that the thing that most people who already knew me previously as the Podcast Answer Man and the people who are just now being introduced to me and my experience up to this point as the Podcast Answer Man, these people don't need a 4-week group training program. Many of them need a mastermind group experience or some one-on-one coaching. And so I decided several weeks ago that I'm going to not bring back Podcasting A to Z, but instead going to bring back 2 new versions of the Next Level Mastermind, one for established entrepreneurs and one for early stage entrepreneurs. I had done that from November 2017 all the way through the end of June 2025. And I shut down both of my mastermind groups because I thought I was going to go in a different direction with my business and the type of work that I do and the type of people that I worked with. It was going more in a spiritual direction, helping people on their faith journey. And then I realized, nope, that has not been a validated business model. And after 18 months of working in that field and only onboarding new clients who were still coming to me for business strategy and mindset, I realized it's like, okay, I've given this everything it has to give, and I'll go back to what's validated. And so that's exactly why I brought back Podcast Answer Man. And this is when I decided I will bring back the Next Level Mastermind. And as soon as I started having people respond to my calls to actions, some of them even related to my call to action for Podcasting A to Z, one person in particular, her name is Jackie. She says, "Hey, Cliff, I just want to let you know, I saw that you are going to be doing another Podcasting A to Z course. I would very much like to be considered for your next program. Please let me know when it's available. I've already got 3 different podcasts that I've done over the years. I've got a couple hundred podcast episodes. I took the past year off for some family stuff that's been going on in my life. So I don't necessarily need technical help moving forward, but I'd love to be involved in your world as I bring back my podcast brands and really help get some clarity about the direction where I want to go next. It'd be nice to be involved with you and whatever group of other people you attract to that 4-week group coaching program." Now, when that message came in, I had already determined that Podcasting A to Z was not going to come back. And instead, I was going to focus on the Next Level Mastermind. So I immediately reached out to Jackie and we scheduled a call. I served her powerfully. I helped her gain some clarity about where she wants to go. And I told her about my bringing back the Next Level Mastermind. She goes, "I am in." And we relaunched the Established Entrepreneurs Mastermind group. Not long after that, it was just 1 week later, by our second meeting, somebody else who has been in my community for 20 years, his name is David. He started following me way back in the days when I was doing the Lost podcast. And he's like, "Hey, Cliff, I had some issues in my business last year. I kind of got really bummed because I thought some things were going to take place and those didn't happen. And now I'm left with this situation. And I think that if I were involved in your mastermind group, I know you and I talked about it a couple of years ago. I told you I was ready to join. And then I kind of decided not to at the last minute, but I'm ready now. If you're ready for me, I'd like to join." And I'm like, it just so happens I just brought it back last week. So let's do this. And so for the last several weeks, the Next Level Mastermind has been back in session. And we've been meeting and having a powerful time together. So when it came time for my hot seat, I shared with them, my mastermind group, what's been going on. I've been very active in connecting with lots of people that I met at Podfest Expo. I've been guesting on other people's platforms, whether it be their podcasts, their mastermind groups, their membership programs, their YouTube channels. I have been inviting people that I've met that I'm really excited about the work they're doing in the world and what they're creating. I've been establishing great rapport and trust with them. I've invited many of them to be a guest on my What Are You Creating podcast, which is the only interview-only format podcast that I have. And I sit there, I said, this is going incredibly well. And one of the things that I'm now committed to is I want to not only fill the current group that we've got going, but I want to launch that early stage entrepreneur group again. And my goal, my focus is to fill both of these groups within the next 90 days. So that's my hot seat today. I want to share with you, or I want to ask you guys a couple of questions, like what would you focus on? I came to the group with a list of questions. And one of the questions was, what would you focus on? What would you stop doing? If you were me, what would you stop doing? If you were me, where would you put your energy each week? What conversations would you initiate and with whom? And so this is kind of the direction that I went. And it was amazing because the feedback that I got were questions. And so one of the questions is, what would you say was the most effective way for you to fill your mastermind groups previously? Because they all know that when I started the Next Level Mastermind, that I filled them both within 90 days. And it went on for, I think it was 6.5 years. No, 7 years. I think it might have been longer than that. Well, here's what I would say. It went from November 2017 until the end of June 2025, however many years that is. And I'm not going to do the math right now. But this has been one of the most powerful things that I've ever done is the Next Level Mastermind. And I've never really experienced any problems with marketing this when I felt this is what my current focus and my current thing that I most want to bring into the world. It's never been an issue. So, Cliff, what had worked for you previously? What would you say is the most successful thing you've ever done to get people in your mastermind group? And I said, well, that would have been prior to COVID. It was me speaking at other people's events where my exact target audience attends. And my exact target audience are early stage entrepreneurs and established entrepreneurs, people who are full-time self-employed. Also, those who have a very service-first mentality, and they also lean towards marketing their business through content and social media. So it's kind of that mix. That's my ideal audience. I said, so when I spoke at Ray Edwards's Copywriting Academy, when I went and spoke at Social Media Marketing World, when I spoke at Michael Hyatt's platform conferences, when I spoke at Jeff Goins' Tribe Conference, when I spoke at Giovanna Ellison's Tribe event, when I spoke at all of these different entrepreneurial outlets, these conferences, I would go connect with people. I usually establish about 15 to 25 deep connections. And then several of them heard that I had a mastermind group and joined, like they made the decision to join before the conference was over. And then I would walk away from that event, follow up with almost everyone that I had that deeper layer connection with. And out of those, about 50% of them became paid mastermind groups. And I was going to events about 6 to 8 times a year. I said, so by and far, that was the most successful thing. And I didn't say this, but I will share this background. They knew this part. And that is, I would use the Prosperous Coach method for creating clients. And this is based upon the book, The Prosperous Coach by Rich Litvin and Steve Chandler. I would invite somebody into a complimentary coaching experience with me. I would give them an experience of the level at which I show up in the world, and then serve them powerfully, oftentimes inviting them to a second complimentary session to see what actions they took based upon the clarity and the insights and the actions they committed to from our first session. And if I felt they could genuinely benefit from the mastermind environment or my one-on-one coaching, I would make a proposal for them for either one of those things, either the mastermind group or my one-on-one coaching. And my success rate since I started using the Prosperous Coach method for creating clients since July of 2019 is that 50% of those I propose to say yes, and 50% say not right now. So anyway, I told them this is one thing that I've done. And so I said I went to Podfest Expo, but when I went to Podfest Expo, I did not go into it thinking I'm looking to build relationships that will potentially lead towards one-on-one coaching or potentially lead towards the Next Level Mastermind, because I thought I was going to come back and I was going to begin a heavy push for podcasting A to Z. I said, but I have been connecting with people. I have been having lots of conversations. I have been guesting on a lot of their podcasts. I have been inviting many of them on mine. And so I said, so the second thing that I would say that has been the biggest effort, the successful effort that I would do in my business is the Prosperous Coach method. The thing is, it's always looking for who are the people who I could bring in and give them a powerful experience of my coaching and invite them through and go through this 4-step process. Then they said, well, Cliff, why don't you go through and invite your former clients, the people who've worked with you in the past? And I'm like, yeah, I could do that. And then we got to talking about how I could make the most out of my time at Social Media Marketing World. And so eventually somebody in the group says, Cliff, a question for you. Why we're doing a lot of talk about 3 or 4 weeks from now when you're, working towards Social Media Marketing World. And if you go and you do all of the things we've been talking about so far, it sounds to me like there's going to be really very few, unless there's organically people already coming towards the decision to join your Next Level Mastermind. It sounds to me like you're really not going to see any fruit from this. You're not going to see any harvest from planting any of these seeds until after Social Media Marketing World. Why aren't you committed to doing whatever it takes to fill this before Social Media Marketing World? I think that's possible. And I said, well, for that to be possible, I'd have to have a number of people in the pipeline ready to be invited and doing coaching experiences. It's like, I can't understand why your schedule isn't full already. And why it's like, and in that moment, I said these words. I said, right now, I've been networking. I've really been building a lot of rapport, a lot of trust, a lot of relationships, a lot of things that are going on in a powerful way. And I've got 1 or 2 people who are ready to be brought into the Prosperous Coach system, inviting them into experiences of my coaching. And as soon as I said that, the guys in the group are like, that just doesn't sound right. It is 1 or 2 people that you could invite. And when I said that, I genuinely thought, I believed that there were only 1 or 2 people that I could invite into a complimentary coaching experience at that moment. But as I heard their question, I started to realize, wait a second, that's not true. Now, this part of the conversation came up near the end of my hot seat. And as soon as I started to hear myself almost make a case in support of my limiting belief, I've learned this, by the way. It's so easy to get caught up in our perceptions that we make a defense of them. And if you ever want to keep a limited belief, all you have to do is defend it. I wasn't ready to defend it because as soon as I said it out loud and as soon as it was challenged, I recognized the untruth of it. But in that moment, when I said I only have 1 or 2 people who I could really bring into the system, immediately I knew that that wasn't true. And there was something about I talked about the fact that, I've been applying a lot of filters for who I invite in these days. And as soon as I started talking about the filters that I bring in, I realized, wait a second, those filters are actually what's standing in the way. There's no way I should be sitting here after meeting all of these new people at Podfest Expo, after being a guest on all of these platforms that I've just been a guest on, after all of these What Are You Creating podcast interviews where I've been inviting other people to be a guest on my show, after all of these people who have come back into my world now that I've brought back Podcast Answer Man, all of these re-engaged relationships, it's ridiculous. I mean, looking back, it's just obvious. It's ridiculous that I thought there's only 1 or 2 people that are at the right spot for me to invite them into a complimentary coaching experience. And as soon as that insight came, by the way, it was one of the first times in like forever that we ran, I think like 2 minutes over. And so I'm like, guys, I got everything I need here. I really appreciate this action item for how I can make the most out of social media marketing world. But the development here at the last few moments, I just had a breakthrough, and I'm going to go and work on something, and I will report back. And then we ended our time together. I shared my appreciation with them, and we ended the meeting. Then I looked at my calendar for the rest of the afternoon, and I didn't have anything scheduled with another person at that time. I only had a project that I had said I would work on that afternoon. But then I realized, wait a second, I have a more important project to work on. And that is taking the transcript of this meeting and going through and summarizing all of the feedback. And I did. I've got bullet point summaries of everything that I could do to make the most out of this next experience. I got the opportunity to be a guest on, or to speak at more events and stuff like that. But boy, getting the right people into coaching conversations is something that absolutely can be done right now. Invitations can go out right away. And so I began to do a lot of self-reflection. I went into ChatGPT and I shared with it what's going on. And I said, hey, I'd love for you to help me sort through all of these different things. And I said, here's the entire transcript. And I said, I want you to be frank with me. I want you to help me review this. I want to see if I can't get some very clear, actionable insight that I can go and turn things around. Because I do agree. I now see I could fill this group. Technically, I could start seeing people like 8 clients before the end of April. So I could bring on 8 to 10 clients as members of the Next Level Mastermind before I even go to social media marketing world. And if I can do that, that's the direction I want to go. And then whatever I do at social media marketing world is just going to be icing on the cake. So I went and said, I'd like to process this. And it gave me ChatGPT gave me 5 different ideas of how we could process what just took place in that hot seat. One was a strategic extraction. We could go through the hot seat and identify the highest leverage actions buried in what was said, what actually matters versus what was just quote unquote good advice, and a clear 30 to 90 day execution plan. So that was one thing we could do. That's one lens that we could look at this transcript and process it. The second one was blind spots and resistance mapping. We could look where you subtly pushed back, filtered, or constrained their input, where your language revealed a bit of hesitation, identity tension, and hidden rules. The gap between what you say you want and how you're currently operating. And I'm like, ooh, that sounds amazing. Number 3, we could talk about emotional processing and internal alignment. What actually landed for you emotionally in that conversation, where you felt energized versus contracted, whether any part of this triggered pressure or urgency or any self-doubt. A fourth lens that we could do to go through this transcript is message refinement, how you're currently describing your mastermind, where it felt diluted or overly filtered or overly complex. And then how to sharpen your language so that matches your authority and conviction. And then we could look at it through a fifth lens, which is a reality check. I'll tell you plainly what I think they were really seeing that they didn't fully say, where I think you are unintentionally limiting yourself, and whether your current approach will get you 20 people within 90 days. So what I told ChatGPT is I said, I would like to go through all 5 of these lenses. And I said, I want to start with the emotional processing and internal alignment. Then I'd like to focus on the blind spot and resistance mapping, then message refinement, then reality check, and then strategic extraction. And we did it one by one. I have a journal post that if I were to print this out on paper, it'd be about 35, 40 pages. It's that long, going back and forth. But boy, was it such a powerful tool. So let me share with you the thing that really stood out to me most, and that was the blind spots. It's going to take me a second here to scroll down to get to the blind spots because, like I said, this document is so long. Here it is, blind spot and resistance mapping. So I want to share with you the blind spots that, upon reflecting, that were suggested. Here's what I'm seeing. And these are ones that resonated with me. So blind spot number 1, you've been filtering out viable clients before they ever get a chance to say yes. It says here, in this hot seat, you said, I am filtering for who would be a good fit for my highest leverage product. And ChatGPT says, that sounds wise, but the way you're applying it is costing you. And then it says what you're actually doing. You're making pre-decisions based upon, or pre-decisions on behalf of other people. So one of the things that I've been doing is as I think about inviting somebody into a coaching session, I'm already saying things like they're not ready. They wouldn't be a good fit. They're in between levels, or I don't feel resonance. So the one thing that I just recall is just this insight that we need to drop the filters. We're filtering out far too many people, which is why, wait a second, this is the clarity that I have now, and I've had ever since that hot seat was over. I have reached tens of thousands of people. I've had a powerful, profound impact in the lives of tens of thousands of people. And the idea that I need to go out and meet only new people who have never heard me before, or that I haven't talked to in a while, reconnect and establish, and slow roll a new relationship before I invite them into a coaching experience where they get to experience the type of coaching that I do is ridiculous. There are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people that if I were to send them an email and say, I was thinking about you today, I'd like to invite you into a coaching session. If that would be valuable, here's a link to schedule, any variation of that. And who would say yes? And as soon as I'm like, okay, wait a second. So obviously I still want to filter for likely the people who would be a good fit for the Next Level Mastermind. So entrepreneurs. But even then, if I filter, I want to work with people who are full-time self-employed and either the early stage or the established entrepreneur. Even if I filter only for I still have access to thousands. I could invite 10 people a day, every day, Monday through Friday for the rest of this year and not run out of people to invite. That is a major difference than what I said in the mastermind group when I said, I think there's about 1 or 2 people that are just getting ready to be brought into a complimentary coaching experience. And I'm like, I can't believe I said that. It's just this blind spot. It's like, here's the second blind spot that ChatGPT suggested. You've been using resonance as a decision-making tool instead of a signal. You said in the transcript, there didn't seem to be the same resonance. And it says here, resonance is not something that you wait for. It's often something that emerges after you lead. I love this part. It says, here's what's actually happening. When you meet someone, you're in connection mode. You're not leading a coaching experience. You're not making an invitation. And then you conclude, there's not much resonance here. And this is so true. One of the things that I've been doing, which I've never done before, is I've been inviting so many people into 30-minute connect calls where we talk to each other. We share notes. We get to know each other. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The thing is, though, is that doesn't actually demonstrate what I do as a coach or the environment that I create for people to have major breakthroughs in a single conversation. And so I wasn't giving myself the opportunity to experience resonance with someone because I wasn't inviting them to the environments where I've witnessed resonance so many times. And I must admit, there have been a number of times where it's like, wow, I never would have expected that relationship to turn into this. And yet it did because I invited them straight into a complimentary coaching experience back in the day where I had not been doing that so quickly. I've been slow rolling relationships. And I think there's a lot of value to slow rolling relationships, but at the same time, I was hesitating too much before the invite, waiting for that perfect moment where I was certain that it was going to be a total no-brainer. Anyway, blind spot number 3 was you're underestimating the volume of real opportunity available to you. This is what the members of my mastermind group were seeing. As I'd said, there's only maybe 1 or 2 or maybe a handful. They were actually saying, it's like, I can't understand why you couldn't invite hundreds of people. You've had influence in the lives of thousands and not just a little bit of influence. You've had deep influence in the lives of thousands. You have deep relationships with hundreds upon hundreds of people. And yet my internal narrative is that there's only a few viable people who might be a good prospect for the Next Level Mastermind. And I'm like, that's not reality. That is a very limited perception of what's available to me. And it's as soon as this blinder was taken off, I'm like, oh, wow. Blind spot number 4, it says that you've been operating in a nurture mode when the moment calls for activation. It said that your current pattern is this. You encourage, affirm, reflect, support, you stay present, and all of this is excellent and it's incredibly valuable. However, you are over-indexed on nurture and under-indexed on direct invitation, clear next steps, and movement into engagement. And as soon as I saw that, I'm like, yep, that is exactly it. And then blind spot number 5, you've separated your coaching from your client creation. So my thinking before was, I'll nurture the relationship and I'll invite them later. However, what I lost sight of is that the real value, once a relationship is established, is to simply invite them into the experience. They can say no. It doesn't have to be high pressure. And it just is powerful when I do it. I've done it before. Anyway, what happened was I went through all of these blind spots, processing all of this stuff, genuinely bringing up what's coming up, what kind of resistance I've had, where did I actually think, what kind of thoughts and feelings and emotions were present for me as I am having these relationships. Why didn't I move straight into invitations? So I went through it and I processed under all of these filters. And then I came away with a very strategic plan. And I created what I now call my invitation engine. And I decided that I am, in fact, going to take advantage of the thousands of people that I know who are on the entrepreneurial journey. And I am going to invite 10 of those people per day, every day for the next 90 days, Monday through Friday, that is, into a complimentary coaching experience. Not everyone's going to say yes, but I'm going to take anybody who I know who is on the entrepreneurial journey and I'm going to invite them into a session. So far, I will tell you, this was on Wednesday. I'm recording this. I haven't done any work related to this since Friday afternoon. So within 2.5 days, I went from I'm about ready to invite 1 or 2 people to I have, let's see here. I have 10 people scheduled for a 90-minute coaching experience. I went from there's 1 or 2 I can think to invite to where I already invited and have 10 of those people that I've invited scheduled for a call. 3 people have already said yes to a coaching experience with me. Actually, that's 2 people. I just realized there was a little error in my CRM. But anyway, there are 2 people who have already said yes, and I'm just waiting for them to schedule their session. That'll probably come in on Monday. And there are 18 more that I have already sent an invitation to that just haven't responded yet. And I've got to follow up for 1 week later to follow up with them. And not one of these people am I concerned whether or not are they going to say yes, are they going to say no, are they not going to reply. I just realized it's like, wait a second. The question, there's only one filter. Do I genuinely believe? Actually, there are 2 filters. One, is this person on the entrepreneurial path? That's the first question. So then there's only one filter question. Do I genuinely believe a coaching conversation with me could serve this person right now? If the answer to that question is yes, it doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter how long we've known each other. It doesn't matter if they're a peer who has made millions of dollars in the last 5 years. It doesn't matter who they are, how successful they are. If they are on the entrepreneurial path and I have a relationship with them and I genuinely believe a coaching conversation with me could serve this person right now, then I am going to send them an invitation. And so, like I said, so if we take a look at this, that's 18, 19, 20, 28, 30. So over those 3, of course, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it makes sense. There are 30 people. So in 3 days, I invited 30 people. And already 10 are scheduled. 2 have said yes, waiting to schedule. So out of the 30, that is 12 people who have said yes. And there are 18 people who are likely going to respond to me Monday or Tuesday. And if they don't, they will get a follow-up, like I said, 1 week later. But I already have 39 more people that I've identified that are going to be invited next. Actually, I'm just going to move one person over here. And so I just moved that person over. So now there's 40 now. So there's 40 people in here right now. And that gives me 10 people per day for the next 4 days. And like I said, I have thousands that can go into the front of this list. And I created myself a little Kanban board to just show me where people are that, in this process. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is exactly what I was not seeing before. And it's what I was doing in 2019, and I simply just lost sight of it. Anyway, all of that because I went into my mastermind group and I said, guys, I'm looking to fill both mastermind groups in the next 90 days. When I asked them, what do you think I should focus on? Give me some ideas of what you would do if this were you and this were your goal. And they asked me the question, Cliff, what's the number one thing that you did previously? And I said, booking myself to speak at conferences where these people attend and building a relationship and nurturing them and then bringing them through the Prosperous Coach method. And in my mind, that's what I need. I need to go and speak at these events and have this process. But when that second question is like, why aren't you just inviting people now? And I'm like, well, there's only a handful of people that are in a place where they're ready to be invited. And I'm like, yeah, I hear it. It took me a minute, but it's like, no, That's not right. Yeah, I see it. And I went to work that afternoon, and over the next 2.5 days, 30 invitations went out. Now, I will share with you, there was some folks that I've sent an invitation to, and I'm like, am I really going to send an invitation to this person who is at this level? And the question I had to ask myself was like, okay, wait a second. Sure, they've generated millions of dollars. Sure, they have hundreds of thousands of people on their mailing list. Sure, they have XYZ. Have you or have you not had clients who fit all of those descriptions? Yes. Okay, wonderful. Did they get value out of having you as a coach? Yes. Did they send lots of other people to work with you? Yes. Did they hire you to speak at their events? Yes. Then why wouldn't you? It's like, oh, yeah. So it's amazing how if you allow yourself to take something that has worked so brilliantly in the past, let me just stop talking about how it could be for you. It is amazing how I could take something that has worked so brilliantly in the past, but allow life circumstances and maybe a couple of shifts in focus over the course of a couple years to get me to the place where this lived experience that I've had in the past that has worked so incredibly well is no longer in my consciousness, like my active awareness, and how I could immediately think that, wow, the only way I could do this is the way I was doing it right before COVID. I need to go back and speak at events. Now, by the way, I am going to go back and speak at events. There are a couple of things that I'm going to do. First and foremost, I have 90 days worth of people to invite, so that's not a problem. One of the things that would be a concern, though, is if I'm not doing things that would consistently bring new relationships into my experience. And I certainly have had an experience in the past where I would stop prospecting. I would stop the client creation or the new client introduction, prospect introduction, the prospecting, those kinds of things. And I'm not talking about a big, huge funnel either. What I'm talking about is that for me, I have discovered that, wow, what if I now realize that Podcast Answer Man is back? I lean into the credibility and the experience that I have there, and I allow that to generate and lead lots of new people into Podcast Answer Man. Several of those people will find the deeper layer, the behind the scenes of what I share here in the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. Some relationships that I make through people who are responding to me, I can send them immediate invitations into a coaching experience once I find out that they are on the entrepreneurial path. I could invite some of the people who are doing some really exciting things in the world and share and feature their story in the What Are You Creating podcast. I could get myself booked to speak at events. And even if I'm not booked to speak, I can still attend these events. And so I've already determined that I want to go to Social Media Marketing World, Podfest, Podcast Movement, the big event, not the Evolutions one. Let's see here. My friend Lou Mongello has an event each year. Vincent Puglisi has an event. And there's Social Media Week Lima. So there's 6 events that I could just make a commitment to. I'm going to hit them every year for the next few years and maybe even consider a couple of others. In fact, I've already been invited to speak at a couple of others. So I'm going to consistently show up on stages as long as the world continues to stay open. I am going to continue to create weekly content for the Cliff Ravenscraft Show and Podcast Answer Man. I'm going to continue to invite people to be a guest on What Are You Creating? And I'm going to continue to show up on other people's platforms, whether it be their podcasts, YouTube channels, mastermind groups, leading workshops for their membership programs, whatever the case may be. For 90 days, I'm using the invite engine to invite 10 people per day, every day, Monday through Friday, until both groups of the Next Level Mastermind are full. And then once that takes place, I may not be doing 10 invitations per day, but I will consistently bring in people through this invitation process, into this coaching experience process. So that's what's been in my experience this week. Thought I would share that with you. And if there's ever anything in here that resonates with you, you want to talk about, it's like, man, Cliff, I'd love to chat with you about my own journey that I'm having here in my business pursuits. If you are an established entrepreneur or an early stage entrepreneur and you're looking for a mastermind group, whatever, just reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you for any reason whatsoever. My email address is cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. Anyway, until next time, my friend, I encourage you to take everything you do, including shoring up some of those blind spots, to the next level.
Podcast. Add some man.